The shop was dead quiet that afternoon, except for the clinking of my wrench against the stubborn bolt. Oil on my hands, sweat at my collar, just another long day fixing what other people broke. That's when she walked in. Her heels stopped short on the concrete floor, too polished for a place that smelled of grease and gasoline. She stood there, framed by the wide doorway, the sunlight behind her almost making her glow. "Do you take walk-ins?" she asked. Her voice was steady, like she already knew the answer, but asked anyway. I nodded too quickly, wiping my hands on a rag. Yeah? Sure. What's the trouble?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she slipped her sunglasses off, eyes scanning the room before landing on me. Green-gray, sharp but tired. The kind of eyes that had seen more than they'd ever admit. "It's my car," she said finally. "It keeps stalling when I stop. It's old. Like me." I laughed before I could stop myself, but she didn't smile back. Not at first. Then the corner of her mouth lifted, quick, small, and gone. Something pulled tight in my chest. I got her keys, walked out with her to the car. She moved with that quiet confidence of someone who had nothing left to prove. Every step precise, no rush. She leaned against the hood while I listened to the engine struggle, her arms folded, her gaze somewhere over my shoulder. "You're young," she said, almost to herself. I looked up. 22. She nodded once, as if filing it away, though she didn't tell me her age. She didn't have to. Lines etched softly at the corners of her mouth, hair pinned up but loose enough to fall if the wind insisted. She was at least twice my age, and still carried herself like no one could look away. While I leaned under the hood, I felt her watching. Not openly, but enough that I could feel the weight of it, like heat on the back of my neck. "You good at this?" she asked. I tightened a screw. "Good enough to keep people moving." A pause. Then softer. "That's important." I looked up at her then, and for a second either of us spoke. Just a quiet garage, the hum of the engine, and her eyes on me a moment longer than they should have been. That silence wasn't ordinary. It stretched. It said more than either of us wanted to admit. Finally, she cleared her throat. "Well, just let me know when it's ready." Her tone had changed, too quick, too clipped, as if pulling back something she hadn't meant to reveal. I nodded, pretending to focus on the engine. But when she turned to leave, I caught myself watching her reflection in the dusty shop window. Her hand lingered on the car door before she got in. A hesitation, small, almost invisible, like she wanted to say something else but decided against it. Then she was gone. The sound of her engine sputtering down the street stuck in my ears. But louder than that was the silence she left behind, and the way my chest tightened when I replayed the moment her eyes met mine. I told myself it was nothing. Just a customer. Just another day. But the truth? I couldn't stop thinking about that pause. That smile she didn't mean to give. The weight in her voice when she said, "Important." And that night, lying awake, I realized something I shouldn't have. It wasn't her car that needed fixing. It was me. She came back 2 days later. Not because I'd finished fixing the car, but because she hadn't called, and I hadn't rushed. Maybe she wanted me to take my time. Or maybe she just wanted an excuse. Either way, she was standing in the doorway again. Same calm posture, same cool voice. "Thought I'd check on the patient," she said, nodding toward her car. I wiped grease from my palms, suddenly aware of how dirty they looked compared to her neatly folded sleeves. "Runs better. Just a few more adjustments." Her eyes flicked to my hands, then to my face, before she looked away. Quick, like she hadn't meant to notice. I offered her a seat on the old metal stool by the counter, but she shook her head. "I'll stand. Easier to leave that way." She said it like a joke, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. I went back to the car, tools clinking, but I kept sneaking glances. Her fingers traced absent circles on the counter's edge, restless, delicate. I noticed a thin scar along her knuckle, barely there but old. The kind of detail you only saw if you were looking too long. She caught me staring. Something on my hand? I stammered. No. Just, wondered if you'd had that scar long. Her face softened a fraction. A kitchen knife. Years ago. Then she shook her head, almost laughing at herself. Strange what people notice. I wanted to say, I notice everything about you. Instead, I bent lower into the hood, pretending the engine needed more attention. She filled the silence, but her words came slower this time, heavier. You ever feel like you can't quite stop moving? Because if you sit still, you might have to face something? Her voice cracked barely, but it was there. Vulnerability, wrapped in careful control. I didn't answer right away. I could hear her breathing behind me, steady but thinner than before. Finally I said, all the time. That silence again, not empty but thick. When I looked up, she wasn't watching me. She was staring at the floor, lips pressed together, jaw tight. Then she exhaled and tried to play it off, brushing invisible dust from her sleeve. Forget I said anything. But I couldn't forget. I tightened the last bolt, heart thudding too loud in the quiet. Then I closed the hood and turned toward her. She was already watching me again. Eyes steady, expression unreadable. For a moment neither of us moved. Just the ticking of the cooling engine between us, and the strange weight of something unspoken pressing against the air. Her hand rested on her purse strap, as if ready to leave. But she didn't. And I didn't tell her that I hoped she wouldn't. The third time I saw her wasn't planned. The rain had been coming down hard all evening, hammering the tin roof of the shop like it wanted in. I was finishing late, lights dim, the place half closed, when headlights swept across the windows. Her car. Again. She stepped inside with her umbrella dripping, hair damp at the edges. Not polished this time, she looked softer. A wool coat, no makeup I could see. Her voice carried a hint of apology. Sorry to barge in this late. The wipers stopped working. Thought I could make it home, but... She trailed off, shoulders lifting. It's fine, I said too quickly. Really? You're lucky I was still here. I don't believe in luck. She set her umbrella against the wall, droplets spreading across the concrete floor. Then she looked at me, and for the first time, her guard didn't feel solid. She looked tired. I worked quietly, replacing the blades while thunder rolled somewhere distant. She hovered close, arms folded against the chill. Too close, maybe? I could feel her presence more than see it, the faint smell of rain and her perfume tangled together. You're always working late, she said softly. Not always. Just when it feels better than being alone. Her silence stretched. Then, almost a whisper, I know what you mean. I looked at her then. Really looked. The lines of exhaustion on her face, the way her lips pressed together like she wanted to say more but didn't trust herself. For a second, it felt like we weren't two strangers at all, just two people circling around something neither dared to name. You don't have to stay, I said, though my voice betrayed me. I know. She didn't move. The shop felt too quiet, except for the rain. My hand brushed against hers when I reached for the rag on the counter. Just a second. Too quick. But her breath hitched, or maybe I imagined it. She opened her mouth like she might finally say something, but before she could, her phone buzzed sharply in her purse. She froze. Fumbled for it. Answered with a clipped, guarded voice I hadn't heard before. Yes. I'm fine. No, I said I'm fine. A pause. Then she turned away, voice lower. I told you not to call me at night. Her shoulders stiffened. When she ended the call, she didn't look at me right away. Instead, she grabbed her umbrella, her purse, like she had to leave before the silence betrayed her. I should go, she said. Her voice was steady again, too steady. I swallowed hard, wanting to stop her, to ask who it was, to close the distance that had nearly disappeared between us. But all I managed was, Your wipers will hold. Drive safe. She nodded. Her eyes lingered a second too long, enough to light something in me I shouldn't have felt. And then she was gone again, leaving me with the echo of her almost confession. And the heat of a touch that never really happened. The fourth time wasn't about cars at all. She came by on a quiet evening, the kind where the sky had already turned to ash, and the shop smelled faintly of rain from the night before. I hadn't been expecting her, but there she was, no pretense, no reason offered. "I was driving past," she said, voice low, almost embarrassed. "Thought I'd check in." I nodded like it was normal. It wasn't. We sat across from each other at the counter, me with a mug of bitter coffee, her with nothing in her hands except the nervous twist of her fingers. For a while, we talked about nothing: the weather, the traffic, the way old cars outlast the new ones if you take care of them. Small talk that circled the air but never landed. Then silence. It stretched, long enough for me to feel my pulse in my throat. Her gaze found mine and held it, too steady to be casual. Finally, she exhaled. "What are we doing?" The words dropped heavy between us. Not angry, not soft. Just raw. I didn't answer right away. My thumb worried the edge of my mug, my chest tight. "I don't know," I admitted. "But I know it doesn't feel like nothing." Her lips pressed together. She leaned back, crossing her arms, but her eyes never left me. "You're too young to waste time like this. You should be." She cut herself off. Shook her head. "You shouldn't even be looking at me like that." "I'm not," I said quickly. Too quickly. Then, quieter. "Not the way you think." Her laugh was small and humorless. "Don't lie. I can see it. I feel it." The silence after that was worse. It wasn't the silence of strangers anymore. It was heavy, fragile, as if one wrong word could shatter it. She stared at the floor for a long time, then back at me, her voice rougher now. "You don't know what it's like to live long enough to collect mistakes, to watch yourself repeat them anyway." I swallowed hard, my hand tightening around the mug. "Then maybe let someone else carry a little of it." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. She just looked at me like she wanted to say something that terrified her. Instead, she whispered, "You make it too easy to forget how wrong this is." I couldn't breathe for a second. The weight of her words pressed into me, leaving no room for denial. She stood abruptly, smoothing her coat with shaky hands. "I shouldn't be here." I wanted to stop her, to reach out, to bridge the gap that silence had carved between us. But my body stayed rooted to the stool. She paused at the door, one hand on the frame. The shop light cast her shadow long across the floor. Without turning, she said the line that would stay with me long after she left. "You remind me of everything I swore I'd never want again." And then she was gone, leaving the silence louder than any touch could have been. She didn't come back for almost a week. I told myself I wouldn't think about it, wouldn't wait for headlights to slow outside the shop. But every night, I listened for them anyway. When she finally did appear, she wasn't herself. No heels, no careful posture. Just jeans, a loose sweater, hair pulled back like she hadn't bothered with mirrors. "Car's fine," she said quickly, stepping inside. I just needed air." I didn't ask. I just nodded and offered her the same stool. She sat this time, elbows on the counter, her fingers tight around her phone like it was the only thing keeping her anchored. The silence between us was different. Not thick with tension, fragile, instead. Like something had cracked. She set the phone down, screen lighting up with a picture she didn't mean for me to see. A man, older, smiling in the kind of way that reaches the eyes. He had an arm slung around her, casual and familiar. She noticed me looking. Her hand moved to cover the screen, but she didn't press the button. Didn't hide it. "He died 2 years ago," she said softly. The words sank into the room like a stone into deep water. No ripple. Just wait. I didn't know what to say. I shifted, my hands useless against the grease-stained rag I'd been twisting. She gave a brittle laugh, staring at the picture. "You remind me of him. Not his face. Not even his voice. Just the way you look at me like I matter." My throat tightened. I swore I'd never let anyone do that again, she whispered. Because losing it once almost killed me. The rain outside had started again, faint against the tin roof. I tried to breathe with it, steady and even, but her words shook something loose inside me. I wanted to tell her I wasn't him, that I wasn't anyone she had to lose. But instead I said the only thing that came out. I don't want to hurt you. Her eyes finally met mine. Shining, raw, unguarded. Then don't. It wasn't a demand. It wasn't even a plea. It was something quieter, heavier, as if she didn't believe it was possible. The shop felt too small for the air we weren't breathing. I reached for the phone, not to touch it, but to slide it gently back toward her. She let me. Her fingers brushed mine, light as paper, and she didn't pull away. We stayed like that, suspended, caught between grief and something unnamed, until the screen dimmed and left us staring only at each other. And in that silence I realized, this wasn't a game anymore. It was a fault line, waiting to break. The shop was empty again, but it didn't feel the same kind of empty. She was sitting on the counter, legs crossed at the ankle, while I wiped down tools I'd already cleaned twice. Neither of us pretended she was there for the car anymore. No small talk. No excuses. Just the hush of two people holding back something that had already spilled between them. She broke the silence first, her voice low, careful. You know this can't go anywhere. I set the rag down. I know. Her shoulders relaxed, but her eyes didn't. Then why do I keep coming back? I almost smiled. Maybe for the same reason I keep hoping you will. The words hung there, too honest to take back. She didn't flinch, though. She just looked at me, long, steady, as if she was searching for a way out and not finding one. I don't want to make a mistake again, she said. Her fingers twisted in her lap, restless. Then don't, I murmured. But don't call this a mistake either. She drew in a sharp breath, and for a moment, I thought she might stand and leave like before. But she didn't. She stayed. The quiet stretched, but it wasn't heavy this time. It was softer, fragile in a way that felt like trust. I moved first, not close enough to scare it away, just enough to sit on the stool beside her. Our shoulders weren't touching, but the distance was gone. Her hand rested between us on the counter, fingers loose, open. I didn't take it. I just let my own hand settle nearby, close enough that the air warmed where we almost touched. It was nothing. And it was everything. Her head tilted barely, until she leaned against me. Just the weight of her shoulder against mine, light but steady. I didn't move. I didn't breathe too deeply. I just let her stay there, both of us staring at the same wall as if it could hold all the things we weren't saying. The rain started again outside, soft this time, tapping the roof like a rhythm only we could hear. You remind me of him, she whispered, not as a wound this time, but as something closer to peace. I turned slightly, enough that her temple brushed my jaw. Then maybe I was meant to. Her eyes closed. She exhaled, long and slow, like she'd been carrying something heavy for too long. And in that moment, nothing was confessed, nothing was promised. But everything was understood. We stayed like that, not kissing, not speaking, not needing to. Just leaning into the quiet collapse that neither of us could fight anymore. It wasn't forever. It wasn't even safe. But it was ours. I think about her still. Not every day, not with the same ache I used to, but enough. Enough to know it wasn't just a passing spark. Looking back now, it wasn't the stolen glances or the pauses that haunted me most. It was the way she carried her loneliness like armor, polished, unbreakable, until, piece by piece, she let me see the cracks. I was 22, too young to understand that love isn't always about beginnings. Sometimes it's about what's left after endings. She taught me that. Not with lectures or promises, but with the quiet way she leaned against me that night, as if I was a place she could rest. We didn't fall into some fairy tale. There was no dramatic confession, no vow to make it work against the world. What happened between us was smaller than that, and maybe braver too. She gave me honesty. I gave her space. And in that fragile middle ground, we found something neither of us had been looking for. I saw her grief, raw and unpolished, and it changed me. It showed me that love isn't just desire or attraction, it's carrying someone else's weight, even for a moment, without asking for anything back. And maybe, for her, I was a reminder. Not of what she lost, but of what it felt like to be seen again. We didn't last. That part one should tell you. But it doesn't mean we failed. Sometimes people come into your life not to stay, but to shift something inside you forever. She did that for me. And I think, maybe I did that for her, too. Now, when I hear rain against the roof, I remember the silence we shared, the kind that spoke louder than any confession. And I carry it with me, the truth that love can be messy, unbalanced, impossible, and still real. That's what I learned. Not all stories end with forever. Some just end with understanding. And that's enough. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?